All right, we wanted to make this video today, and a lot of discussion, a lot of, I don't want to use the word controversy, but just a lot of different opinions, strong opinions on this topic, and it's the topic of slinging an anchor, slinging an aerial ladder for a high-pick anchor point. You know, what are some of the things that you want in an anchor? You know, you want it to be solid and not have to worry about it. You want it to be bomb-proof, so that you have no question that it'll fail. And that's not always possible in high pick points. You know, you have spars that you can use ladders and from elevated positions, but sometimes you can't do that. Therein lies the reason why we're going to use actually an aerial device as a high pick point, a ladder on an aerial for a high pick point. So that brings us to the second part of the discussion. You know, what's the best way to sling an anchor system off the tip of the aerial? Do you do one sling for both your safety and your main line? Do you do multiple slings for your safety and main line? There's just a lot of discussion out there. So what we did is we're going to show you just kind of the way the state recommends doing that, and we're going to just talk about some pros and cons of other systems and the way that they work and what's stronger and weaker. And we've got about 5 or 6 slings set up, and just let you guys make the decision on what you like. What we do on our company is not really important. It's just kind of food for thought, and just a topic that probably needs to be touched on. We've had guys come with supporting literature and battle each other about this, and it's just kind of, we just want to show some different options and let you guys make the decision for yourself. So today I'll show you what we have here. We've got a bunch of slings set up, and Malcolm's going to go ahead and just kind of talk us through what we got here, what the state recommends, and what they don't recommend, and just let you guys make the decision on food for thought. So with that said, we'll go ahead and start it off.
All right, so we made the decision that we're going to go with an aerial pick point, and that's already been done. Our aerial's been spotted, locked out, tagged out. We know we're operating within the capacities and how the ladder is supposed to be used, so that's all not part of this discussion. Basically, our first sling here we set up is per California state curriculum. This is your standard 1-inch tubular webbing. It's done in a basket, tied around itself, followed through with water knots, and linked with a carabiner.
So like it's just a pre-tied anchor sling.
So you can run independent. You could run a double pulley off of here like we have this set up there. You could also run 2 separate slings with 2 separate pulleys. Pluses and minuses to both. If you have 2 independent slings with independent pulleys, maybe a little bit of a safety factor built in, but it's not necessarily an independent system because you're all operating down the same aerial. If you want to talk completely independent systems, you need to call a second truck. At that point, I think you have to have some confidence in your opinion, in your equipment, and a double pulley definitely keeps things a lot cleaner. If you can run your safety and your main through a double pulley, you've got 2 lines, you've got 2 separate anchors down at the base of your aerial, but everything's coming up through this system.
So the first one here is basically just, it's a pre-tied sling, right? It's just a piece of webbing with a carabiner holding it together, and then you just grip them both, right? So, I mean, like, what's something like that rated at?
Doubled up 1-inch webbing, so you're looking at right around 8,000.
So yeah, it's 4,000 for one piece of webbing, but we double it up, so they call it 8,000 pounds. So some people say that you need, 2 of these guys. This is what the state recommends. 2 of these guys, one for your main line, and then an independent sling would be like somewhere over here for your safety line. And then we've heard the argument that you don't need that. So we're just showing you different options. I mean, you could hang one here for your main line, the same system over here for your safety, and you'd have 2 systems. But what Malcolm was alluding to, at what point, do you kind of have confidence in your system? The reality of it is, the weakest point of this whole ladder, or excuse me, of this whole system, is not the pulley, it's not the carabiner, it's not the webbing, it's actually the ladder that we're operating off of. So the webbing and all that stuff is actually really safe, the way it's set up. So that's kind of, we believe, like what the state recommends, is set up just like this, or an additional system exactly like this, set up behind it, about where this yellow sling is, for a safety line.
The plus to this system is pretty much every engine company carrying webbing. Every engine company carries single pulleys. Nothing fancy there, just all your basic equipment.
Right, and there's some things that we want to keep in common and we want to reference in this video are the 3 points of ease of setup. Or one, the most important thing is, are you within your capacity? And well, with all these, yes, you're going to say yes, but safety or the bomb-proofness. 2, the ease of setup and or speed. I mean, some of these take longer than others. And then readily available equipment. I mean, some people don't have the stuff that we're going to show you, but they do have the webbing. So, you know, we just want to show some different options and talk about that. So when we look at all 3 of these, we're going to go over, you know, these talking points for each of them. Some of the other things we're going to mention that you're going to hear are things like critical angle and how each one of these work within a critical angle or not. Are they a basket system, which like this yellow one is? Is it a choke system like this guy over here is? And what are some of the pros and cons of that? Or are they just like pre-tied webbing like this one is? So Coop's going to kind of just show us what we got here. What are some of the pros, minuses, and we're going to go off the talking points of the 3 things we talked about: bomb-proof for safety, ease of setup, and speed on this. So with that said, let's take a look at the second one that we got here.
The second one we have here is a little bit more specialized equipment on here. We've got our 2 independent slings basketed over the beams of the ladder there. Our rating on these is just a little bit below 8,000 pounds. Comes into 2 larger rescue carabiners down to a collection plate to a double pulley. There's obviously different ways you can rig this if you wanted to hang your collection plate up differently. We just found this to be pretty clean as far as bringing everything together and being self-equalizing. That's one of the major points you want with your aerial slings. It self-equalizes under there. So very easy to set up, easy to put into service, very strong and reliable. Probably out of these, one of the more bomb-proof slings we have up here. However, highly specialized equipment. Not every company is going to have access to this.
Right. Probably the con is, yeah, it's not everyone's going to have access to all that stuff. If you do, great, but you know, sometimes this could be difficult to get. And obviously, we're talking about critical angle. We're well within our angle on this sling. We're not even close to touching that 45 degrees. So just one other thing we wanted to talk about with that. What's the second one that we got here?
This guy here is it's a pre-manufactured anchor strap linked together with the carabiner. So it's done rigged basically the same way as the
orange one, right?
Yep. And then just linked together. No knots in the system. This is obviously 2-inch webbing, so your capacity is 8,000 pounds without it even being doubled up. So we're well over 8,000 with this one. Ease of setup, super easy. It is some specialized equipment. However, as you can see, we're definitely not within our choice angle there. We're a little snugged up against that ladder.
And will that angle or anything change, like when we raise or lower this ladder? I mean, how's that come into play?
It's generally not going to change too much. It's going to shift back closer to the waterway, which may also cause other problems if it ends up resting up against there. So generally, with this type of hardware on your ladder, the further away within a reasonable distance you can get, the better off you're going to be.
So it's definitely bomb-proof. It's definitely safe. It's definitely fast. It's readily available material for some companies. But it doesn't necessarily meet the angle, so that's, you know, possible negative. And the other possible negative on that is the waterway. We wanted to rig up this truck that has a waterway and nozzle just to kind of show you guys, you know, how to work around this stuff. And it also it just has 1 pulley there too. You know, you'd have to do a safety line and a main line on that. So you could either do like a double pulley. That one has 1, so you could even double it, kind of like this one over here. And set it up with 2. Okay, what's the third one that we got here?
Third one here is basically we took 2 of those anchor straps, a 2-inch webbing pre-manufactured anchor straps, and we just choked them up against the beams of the ladder. So
that's a choke right there, right?
Choke up there.
And what are some of the pros of the choke?
Pros of the choke is super easy. Obviously, we've got more of our distance away from the ladder that we like.
Yeah, our angle's good.
There's not a ton of pros to the choke in this application. Metal on metal, generally very bad.
Yeah.
Out of all these, we did this one basically just another example of what you could do, not necessarily, you know, the most ideal situation there. Metal on metal in these type of systems, generally not a good thing.
The good thing about the choke, though, is that it doesn't really slide on the beams. That is one positive, but other than that, yeah, there's more negatives with this than there is positives. But it will work. And what do we got on the bottom here?
Brought that down with a single carabiner. We have a swivel, which is another little bit specialized piece of equipment, but pros and cons to anything. A lot more self-equalizing, gonna allow the load to kind of do its thing. However, you may be in some situations where you may not want that kind of swivel. You know, your patient's in a compromised position, so on and so forth. So
that's
down to a double pulley.